So, day before yesterday, we did one program with range function, right? So, just here, I want to explain you what is the range function. So, what it's going to do is it's going to produce integer sequence. Like we are going to give start and end index, right? So, within that range, it's going to give the integer numbers. Okay. Not string or not anything, only it is applicable for integers, and it's going to generate you a integer sequence. We already discussed, right? It's going to give some list of values as a sequence. Okay, that to integer sequence it's going to generate for us. So this we already discussed. If we give 0 to 10, it's going to give uh, 0 1 2 3 up to 9. It won't include 10 because it won't include the end index. If you we want 10 as well, we need to add plus 1 to the end index so that we can get the value. Okay, it is already clear for us. Okay, that is just range function. It's going to produce integer sequence at runtime. Okay, that is something like dynamic. Okay, that is range function. And here actually for loop is here. So for example, I want to print my name, okay, 100 times. Just remember, if I want to print my name 100 times, I can't use print statement 100 times, right? Okay, if it is 100 times, you can use, okay, print mansa, print mansa, print mansa, like 100 times, you need to write the print statement. Okay, if I want to print that for 1000 times, that's not good enough to write that print statement for 1000 times, right? Okay, so in such scenarios, we are going with loops. Okay, what is the main motto of the looping means just to iterate. Okay, I want to iterate a block of statements for this number of times. Okay, at that time we are going to use looping concept. Okay, so here just I wrote the definition for you the guys. Okay, a for loop in Python requires at least two variables to work, and first variable is an iterable object. Iterable object means nothing but a sequence. We already saw, right? A range is going to give you a sequence, so that is nothing but iterable object, means a sequence, so that we able to iterate over that sequence and we able to get the element by element. That is nothing but iterable object. If we able to iterate over that sequence and if we able to get a element by element, then just we call that as a iterable object. That is nothing but a sequence. Okay, and that can be a list, tuple, string. We can discuss further what is a list, a tuple, some operations on string and all, but we just call them as iterable object because we can iterate, we can loop over them and we can get element by element. Okay, and second variable is to store the successive values from the sequence in the loop. So I think you all guys remember we did for I in range. I is there, right? That is just use it to store element by element. Okay, in first iterate, it's going to store the first element. In second iterate, I is going to take the next. We already saw how the I value is going to change when we start iterating. Okay, so it's going to take total two variables. One is iterable object, and one another variable is to store the successive values. Okay, there are two. One is iter, one is sequence. Sequence we already discussed, some iterable object, and iter to store the value by value or element by element from the sequence. So it's going to take total two parameters or two variables. Okay, and just try to understand the flowchart. It's going to start here. Then what we are doing here for item in sequence. Okay, item is our iter, means it's a for I in range we took, right? So here they took item. Sequence is nothing but on which we want to do iteration on a range function or an list or an tuple or an string like that. And what we are going to do if our sequence is not empty. Okay, see here next condition. It's going to first it's going to loop, then it's going to enter inside that. If sequence is not empty, then it's going to perform the action. If that is empty, it's going to stop the looping. Okay, if that is not empty, it will execute the statement and again it will go for loop. Okay, so the same thing now we are going to discuss with one example how it's going to work the flow chart. The same example I'm going to use here, or else we can take a string. That all right, we already discussed, right? We can loop over a string. Now I am going to take an example of a string and I will show how it's going to work. Previously we just used range function only. Now we are going to use Python. So this is nothing but a string because I've wrapped the data inside double quotes. So that should be a string. Okay. For I in yes. Okay. Print I. Okay. So here what is our yes Python? It's containing a string. So for I in yes in first iteration, I is going to take P. Okay, because what is the first letter in the string is P, right? So it's going to store P in I in first iteration. Okay, and now our string is not empty. Means our sequence here nothing but string. String is not empty, so it's going to print P. Okay, then again it will go to for. Now what will be the I value? That will become Y. And our string is not empty, so it's going to print I. So at finally it will print n, then again it will go for I mean looping. Okay, after n there is nothing, right? There is no character or no space, is nothing there in our string. So finally the loop going to stop there. Okay, after n the loop will stop and the controller will come out of the loop. Is it clear, guys?
Yeah.
I will show you how it's going to
Yes,
execute. See, Python. After n, there is no character or nothing in our string s. That's why controller come out of the loop and loop will stop there. After that, if you print anything, that will print. Okay, means a loop stop and it's come out from the loop and it's going for further execution. With that, if there are any other code, it's going to execute that. Loop will stop. If that all characters or all the elements in a sequence complete, and then it will stop the looping and the controller will come out from the loop. Okay, means first what it's going to do, it's going to enter into the sequence, and if the sequence is not empty, then only it's going to perform the action. Okay, and what is this this is going to change iteration by iteration. In first iteration it's going to take first element, in second iteration it's going to take second, in third iteration it's going to third, like that up to empty it's going to take element by element or character by character. Okay, then if there is no character, the controller will stop that looping and that will come out of the loop. That is a concept here. Okay, I hope you understood, and at the end you can ask doubts. Okay, this is the for loop. Okay, and here we can use else with along with for loop. Normally when we say else, with if we say else, or with elif ladder we say else, but with for loop also we can use else here. Okay, so let us see how this else is going to work for us. Normally if the like how to say, if the statements or if for loop completes, then the else class going to execute for us when after completion of for loop. Okay. And if, for example, in somewhere in middle of somewhere if we break the loop, then we can't execute the else. Means else is going to execute once all like all looping is complete. Try to understand. If for loop completes, then only we are going to execute the else. In middle, if we break the for loop, it won't execute the else block. The controller won't execute the else block. Okay, so for loop need to be executed completely, then only the else associated with the for loop will get execute. Otherwise we can't execute the else. Okay, in concept we can see that. Okay, I will show you one program and we can see. And they just you can see one flow chart, and with that we can try to understand. Okay, so first what we are going to do, we are going to enter into the loop for item in sequence. Then if sequence is empty, okay, first normally if sequence is not empty, you can go to normal statement block and we can execute there. If the sequence is empty, what it's going to do, it's going to this else block. And if there is any break statement, it's going to stop. Means else also won't execute. Okay, even if your for loop is empty, it's going to execute the else. Means what that means, whole for loop is completed, then the sequence become empty. At that time else will execute. But in middle of that looping, if you break that looping, then else also won't execute. Okay, just I will show you one example, guys. We can understand. Here itself, if we use else, and if I wrap that inside else, so our high will get execute. See how our high get executed. Why? Means all the statements inside the sequence, like all the character inside the string, we print. Already we printed. That's why without any interruption, the else block get executed. But in middle, if I interrupt, if I, for example, if my character is equals to O, okay, if my character is equals to O, I don't want to execute further. Just try to understand. I will explain you again if you won't understood. See, now in my example, what I did. So if the character, so I'm printing character by character, and if the character is equals to O, I want to stop the execution. I don't want the characters from O, like the characters after O. Means what that is means, it's going to print P, Y, T, H. So after that, I don't want to print the remaining characters. Means I'm stopping the loop. Okay, don't print the characters after O. Means I'm breaking the loop. That's why this else won't get executed. Okay, because we break the looping here. I hope you understood. If you can't understand, I will tell again. See, in the previous run, what I did without break, it's printed P, Y, T, H, O, N, and finally the statements in else also it's printed for us. But whenever we use break, the statement within else block we didn't execute. Means we are breaking the loop. That's why the statement within else block didn't get executed, because the looping break in between. Okay, so the else is going to execute when if the whole for loop is complete, then only we able to execute the else block. Otherwise we can't execute the else. Okay, understand, guys? Or do I need to repeat again?
Understood.
Can you explain once?
Okay,
Mansa.
see, okay, for example, I associated some else block along with for. Okay, then what it will happen means if all the statements, like if all looping completed for loop, then only the else block will get execute. Otherwise it won't execute. In middle of the for loop, if we stop the looping, then else won't get execute. Okay, so if you want to execute the else block that associated with the for loop, all iterations should be complete without any interruption, then only else block will get execute. Otherwise else block won't get execute. Okay, so we can't break. If we break the looping, then else won't execute that associated with for. Understand, guys?
Yes, Mansa.
Yeah, I understand.
So here in code what I did, okay, I'm taking one string called Python. So I'm starting iterating over the string that is nothing but my sequence, and I'm printing character by character. And in middle what I did, if the character is equals to O, I don't want to print O and the characters after that O. So what I did, I stop the looping with break. If we use break, it's going to stop the looping. Means what I did in middle of the looping, I interrupt the looping and I come out from the loop. So the else won't get execute because looping didn't complete. Okay, that is the reason why if why if we use break, the else didn't execute for us. If you must and should want to execute the else, all iteration should be complete for loop. I hope it is clear. Okay,
Clear, Mansa.
if you get any other doubts at end you can ask. Okay, this is for loop. Then we have while. Okay, why we are using for while? We can use only one loop like that you can ask, but there is slight difference between for and while. Okay, so when we know the exact number of iterations, okay, when we know the exact number of iterations, we can go with for. And if we don't know the exact number of iterations, we can go with while. Okay, for example, here we can consider one real-time example. For example, if you are searching for gas shop, okay, gas shop, I think cylinder shop. Okay, you are going to search for that until you find that. Okay, all right. So you are searching for a gas shop. If you until you are going to search for that, when up to when we find that. Okay, I'm searching for a gas shop. I'm able to search, continuously search. If I find that, I'm going to stop. Means here you don't know the number of searches you need to do. You continuously need to go up to you find that gas shop. Okay, here what it is, you don't know the exact number of iterations. At that time, you can go with while. If you know the exact number of iterations, you can go with for. If you don't know the exact number of iterations, we can go with while. That is the difference between for and while. Okay, only one difference. But it is, if we know the exact number of iterations, you can use for. If you don't know the exact number of iterations, we can go with while. And we can use while for, that's our requirement. Okay, so what will be the flow chart? If the I took some condition, okay, here we are going to use some condition here. So if the condition is true, we are going to execute the statements. If condition is false, we are going to come out from the loop. Okay, here I will take one example and I will show how we can go with. So what I'm going to take here, I'm going to take one value called I is equals to I took 1. Okay, here what I want to print I value up to when, up to if the value is less than 10 or less than 20 or less than 30. So now what I want to print the value of I when like up to the value of I is less than 10. Okay, try to understand. I want to print the value of I up to when, up to the value of I is less than 10. Means here what we are going to do, while I value should be less than 10. Okay, and what I need to do here, print I, and what I want here is I want to increment the value here. In for loop, it automatically increment the value by 1. But in while loop, we manually need to give the increment. So here I will increment by 1. So in first iteration, what is the value of I? 1. 1 is less than 10, right? So it's going to print 1, and then it's going to increment the value by 1, and it's going to assign that to I. At that time, what is the value of I? 2. Okay. So just compare with for loop. Whenever we did for I in range 10, 0, comma 10, print I. So what is the value of I in first iteration? 1. What is the value of I in second iteration? 2. Next 3. Next 4 means, and the for loop automatically will increment by 1. But in while loop, we don't have such a such a feature. We need to manually add the increment statement. That's why I added here. If we run it, see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So what we did with for loop, just we used range there because it's automatically will increment by 1. But in while loop, we don't have such a facility and we need to add manually the increment statement. For example, if you want to print in reverse order, okay, 10 to 1. So at that time, what I'm going to specify here, if I value is greater than 0, I want to print. Because now we are coming in decrement order, 10, 9, 8. Means what we are doing here, we are decreasing the value and finally I want 1. So 1 should be greater than 0, right? At that time only I can print. All values should be greater than 0 and less than 10. That is my condition here. And here, instead of incrementing, we are going to use decrement. See 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, here we need to specify manually. Okay, this is while. And with for loop, normally what we did for printing from 0 to 10 or 11 to 20, like that we did. In now what we did in for while loop, we just display the numbers in decrement. So if we want to do the same thing in with for loop, how we can do? Here I will show you. For I in range, same we can use range, but the start index should become 10. Okay, and end index should become 0 because you want the values up to 1. And finally, here you need to use step size. Okay, I will tell you what is the difference between normal for and for I in range 0, comma 10. So this third and fourth line we previously did and we have an idea on that. Okay, just now I told, right, for loop automatically going to increment by 1. Okay, it's going to take totally 3. So this is a difference I will explain you now. Just to focus on this range. Range we can give 3. Okay, means 3 parameters. One is start index, one is end index, one is step size. Okay, remember step size. One important question: what are the parameters that range function going to take? One important question for your interviews. Okay, here range going to take totally 3. One is start index, one then stop index, then step size. Okay, here if you won't specify when you are printing from in ascending order, then you no need to specify the increment value. By default it's going to increment by 1. Okay, is it clear? By default it's going to increment by 1 and it will print you the values when it is in ascending order. If you want the same thing in descending order, here you need to specify the step size as -1. Then only it will deduct the 1 from the start index, then it will print. So in first iteration, what is the value of I? 10. It will print 10 and that will do minus from that 10 and will print. Then what is the value of 9? 10 minus 1? 9. So I will be 9. And then in third iteration it will do 9 minus 1, that is equals to 8, that will assign 8 to I. When in this, if you want in descending order, you need to specify the step size as -1. If you don't want in descending order, and if you want normally from 0 to 10, well, you no need to specify any step size. By default it's going to take 1. Is it clear?
Yes, Manasa.
Okay, to to come in ascending order, you no need to specify any step size. By default it's going to take 1, but if you want to print that in descending order, we need to specify the step size as -1. Okay, if you
Why
run,
are you that statement again? No?
I just specified for ascending order how we going to pass the parameters to range. Normally previously we took 0 and 10 only, right? So for that purpose I'm just showing the difference from here to there, what will be the difference for ascending and what will be the difference for descending order. To show that I wrote the two loops here. Now I remove, no issues. Now the same thing you can see 10 9 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1. It's going to print in descending order. Okay, and here one more thing I will tell you. I want to skip every second element. Okay, from 1 to 10, if I want to skip every second element, at that time we need to specify the step size as 2. So don't confuse with the previous one and with this one. Okay, now see, 2 every second element executed, 1, then 2 skipped, 3 printed, 4 skipped, 5 printed, 6 skipped, 7 printed, 8 skipped, 9 printed. What I did, I'm skipping every second element. Okay, because here I specify step size as 2. Okay, and if you want to print next 2 elements every time, you need to give step size as 3. After 1 it will skip 2 elements, then it will print 4. After 4 it's going to skip next 2 elements and it's going to print 7. After 7, if you skip 2 elements, 8 and 9, if they skip, there is nothing to print, so loop stops. Okay, did you understand the purpose of step size? So we are going to use when we want that in descending order, at that time we are going to specify -1. And what is a one more purpose? When we want to skip the elements, at that time also we can use step size. Okay, is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is the looping. We have for and while.